Start with the representative for Congressman Mark DeSaulnier Taylor Kim.
I am Chaplain William Michael Geltz, a Vietnam vet, 1966 through 60.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commander for any veteran service organization, Delphine Metcalf-Foster. Delphine Metcalf-Foster is the daughter of a Buffalo soldier. She was also the Department of California's first female commander for the disabled American veterans in the state of California as well. She is a retired first sergeant from the United States Army, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a person I've called friend for over 20 years, Miss Delphine Metcalf-Foster.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to stand with us in recognition and honor of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice in the service to this nation. I would like to just take a moment and to recognize all of those of us who have served or are currently serving, as well anybody here that has lost a loved one. We are humbled by your sacrifices, as we know they are great, and we commend the demonstrations of courage and strength that you have no doubt shown throughout this most difficult time. I would like to also specifically recognize John Aragon, first killed in action from Antioch High School, an Iraq veteran. More than 1 million men and women have died in wartime during the span of this nation's history. To put that in perspective, that's more than the populations of San Francisco, Boston, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. In fact, more people were killed in World War II alone than currently live in the city of New Orleans. This, of course, does not even begin to take into account those who were wounded and went missing. The number is closer to 2.8 million, just slightly more than the city of Chicago. These numbers truly humble us, as they represent people, individuals who were brothers, husbands, mothers, sisters, and friends. These were people woven into the fabric of communities across the nation. They were loved, they were born, and they were missed. Personally, I cannot begin to comprehend the moment when you send your loved one off to war. You watch them disappear out of your line of sight, knowing it may very well be the last time you will see them. Hug them, tell them you love them. But this has been a stark reality for many families in this country. So to have been seeing the telegrams, the middle of the night phone calls, and the chaplain standing in the front door and next to the kin to tell them their loved ones had been killed. It is all too easy for those who have never suffered such losses to see past the holes that were left in the families and communities. That's simply human nature. As Franklin D. Roosevelt once said, those who have long enjoyed privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them. But Memorial Day is a chance to reconnect to the genius of nations' freedoms. It is an important day on which we ground ourselves to the reality of every Gold Star family knows. Our way of life has been shaped and made possible by those who have served and by those we have lost. I would encourage you to get to know those stories within your communities. I think you'll be amazed at the stories of the true valor that you will find. Just this past March, the President awarded the Medal of Honor to Army Staff Sergeant Travis Atkins of Bozeman, Montana, who was killed in action in Iraq on June 1st, 2007. Staff Sergeant Atkins died shielding 3 other of his fellow soldiers from a suicide bomber. His son Trevor, who was just 11 at the time of the attack, accepted the award on behalf of his father. And his mother, Elaine, was also attending the ceremony. Recalled traveling to Fort Drum for the deployment ceremony before her son left to go to Iraq. At the Medal of Honor presentation, Elaine said, "You know, a parent always realizes that some of them are not coming back." This is a reality in the military service, and this is what we take to heart on Memorial Day. We're able to be here today largely thanks to those who are not. There are many ways you can keep our fallen, as well as our injured and ill veterans, in your mind and heart throughout the year. If you're so inclined, organizations like the DAV offered countless ways to give back to those who endure the physical, psychological, emotional wounds of war. It could be driving a veteran to their medical appointment, befriending a veteran who lives alone or in a nursing facility, or just reaching out to a veteran who just left the military service. Please reach out to find ways you can help and engage to be part of the effort to care for those who have served. Working together with friends, neighbors, veterans group, and entire communities, we can ensure that the sacrifices made by our nation's finest and bravest never go unappreciated, and that their memories are never, ever forgotten. I thank all of you for joining us here today. I hope you keep your military men and women and the sacrifices they made close to your heart today and throughout the rest of the year. May God continue to keep and bless all of you. Thank you.
Ms. Delphine, if you'd stay up, we have a couple certificates. First, we have Tito Ramos from the Congressman McNerney's office.
right. Motivating pillar in our community and in the nation, Ms. Delphine Metcalf-Foster. So on behalf of the Congressman, in recognition of being the first woman to serve as the National Commander for any veteran service organization, and to be the first woman to deliver a keynote speech at the Antioch Memorial Day ceremony, I applaud your tireless and unwavering commitment to our veterans. Ma'am.
And it says, DAV, past National Commander Delphine Metcalf-Foster, thank you. Your unselfish and go-getter attitude had a direct impact on the success of Antioch, California 2019's Memorial Day commemorative service. It was our honor to have you as Antioch's first Memorial Day female keynote speaker. Your continued support of local veterans and your dedication to help Delta Veterans Group provide outreach and assistance to those who have served our country and given us our freedom is greatly appreciated. Given May 27, 2019. Deer Valley High School band. Very nice. At this.
Good morning, and thank you all for showing up to celebrate all of us veterans. This next is to celebrate the ones that didn't make it back and gave the ultimate sacrifice. In front of you is the POW MIA table. The table is a place setting for one. A white tablecloth is draped over the table, representing the purity of the response to our country's call to arms. The empty chair depicts an unknown face representing no specific soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, but all who are not with us. A single red rose is displayed in a vase, reminds us the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who kept the faith, waiting their return. The candle symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. The slice of lemon on the bread plate is to remind us of their bitter fate. The salt is symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember, all of you who served with them and called them comrades, and depend upon their might and aid, and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember, till the day they come home.
For those of you who are too young to really remember, it was a day where our country was brutally attacked by a group of Islamic militant extremists who believed that by their attack on our financial, executive, and on our military headquarters in this country, they could cripple the United States. But what happened in actuality was the opposite. They learned a lesson that history has often taught us. I remember the words of Emperor Hirohito after the attack on Pearl Harbor, when he said to his fellow Japanese, "I believe we have simply awakened a sleeping giant." America was not crippled by those attacks. In fact, we came together on that day in a way that those of you who lived through those days will never forget. And there are two very precious things that stand out in my mind about that day. One of them was an interview that I saw. I mean, all of us who are alive on that day remember the horrible pictures that were coming out of New York and out of Washington and from that now sacred field in Pennsylvania. But one of the images that stood out to me was an interview of a young black American. And I'm not sure why they even asked the question, but they said to him, "How does it feel to you today as an African American in our country?" And I'll never forget his answer. He said, "On this day, there are no African Americans. There are no white Americans. There are no Latino Americans. We are all just Americans." And I so appreciated his answer. And the other thing I'll never forget is when Congress let out that day. People from all parties coming out on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, D.C., joining hands, if you remember, and singing hymns to God and praying together for God to hold and restore and to bless our nation. Prayer was happening in schools across the land that day. Because I'll tell you, in a time of crisis, no law can stop people in their hearts from crying out to the God they know is there. You see, what they intended to cripple our nation actually strengthened it. And on that day, we saw what true bravery was all about. Because you see, in a war, it isn't just the brave men and women of our armed forces that sacrificed their lives. On that day, we saw the finest of our first responders, the dangers that policemen face every day, the dangers that firemen face every day, the dangers that all of those who are first responders face every day. And those brave men and women ran into raging fires. They ran into collapsing buildings out of sheer duty and dedication and bravery to save those who still have a chance to be saved. And many of them lost their lives. In fact, on that day, over 3,000 Americans perished in our nation. Brave men and women who were on a plane who refused to let that aircraft to be flown into the White House. They instead did what they had to do to bring that down in a field in Pennsylvania. and the way we watch people rally around the Pentagon in Washington, is you'll never forget the image of that plane fuselage that went into the side of that building in hopes of destroying our military heart. In every one of those places, in New York and Washington, Pennsylvania, first responders raced to the scene, and many of them in sacrifice of their own lives. And that's why it's altogether fitting on a Memorial Day that we remember not just the brave men and women of our armed forces, but also the brave men and women of our first responders, who every day in this city and in other cities put their lives on the line to defend us, to protect us, and to maintain those precious freedoms that we all enjoy. There's a 9/11 memorial here. A 9/11 memorial here at this cemetery. And in just a moment, representatives of our great police department here and our great fire crews are going to be laying a rose and tolling the bell. Because if you were too young to really know what that day was about, I'm hoping visiting a memorial like that will help you always to remember. And if you were alive on that day in 2001, I hope visiting a memorial like that will help you never to forget. We owe a great debt of gratitude to the men and women who died that day, and to the men and women who continue to defend us here at home. Every time there's a crisis, they are there, and we owe them our thanks.
By our Boy Scouts. Thank you very much. It takes a lot of courage to stand up there and play, so thank you very much for that.